Good night. Thanks for coming. Approval of consent calendar. Anybody want to discuss any of the items in the consent calendar? Nothing? We're good. Okay, then we have a motion on the consent calendar.
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 That was easy. Okay. I think that brings us to, we don't have a student report yet.
No,
Though we do have a student board member.
Well,
Since school has just started, we look forward to
figured
one in
we'd
the
give her a
future.
break.
Okay. Though I was curious if we were going to get a second student board member, or is this it for the year?
I've already emailed Ms. Renau about a couple students who expressed interest through Facebook. I'm expecting to hear a chosen candidate soon.
Okay, good. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you for helping out with that, Lauren. Thank you.
Yeah, of
Okay,
course.
so we have staff reports, 2013 summer school, extended school year report.
Nick Berger is here. I think this is his 7th year as summer school principal.
Great.
Wow, time goes by. Yes, I know, and it's actually fascinating. I think I always follow the custodians, and I'm over there kind of thinking the summer workers, I'm proud to be part of that group.
That's
Everybody kind of goes away, and there's a lot of work that we do. So that being said, summer school this year was similar to last year. We had general education classes for credit recovery for high school students, and then we had our special education program. And, I'm happy to say it was pretty uneventful. It was very productive. We had a lot of students pass classes. Our special education programs went beautifully. And, really it was positive. For me, the difference this year is I was in the classrooms a little more. We had morning and afternoon classes, and the special education programs were over in the afternoon, so I got in these high school classes and really got to work with the kids. And for me, that was kind of refreshing and good to see what they're doing. And it's always good to kind of really get in the classrooms. So for me, that's my opportunity, and I learned a lot this summer. So, any questions? Yes.
3 hours seems like a long time for a class, and you said it worked well, but I'm curious, are there any special techniques you had for making the students pay attention
Yeah,
for 3
making them.
hours?
Yeah, the teachers were great. And it's very strategic. There's a lot of group work. There's a lot of switch it up. We found going to the computer lab and being able to work in the middle school computer lab is a great change of environment. There's a lot of space so kids can spread out. And there's so many things that kids are doing on the computer that, pretty much half of the courses can be done online and sharing documents. And
So that 3 hours was broken up into...
we did a lot of
variety of
separating. The
activities.
classroom, and then the
okay.
computer lounge, and breaks. We
Good.
definitely took a water breaks,
Thank you.
but it was long. It's
Yeah.
it's that toss up of 6 weeks versus 4 weeks. I constantly surveyed everybody, and we're still in for the 4 weeks. There's openness, but it is good to have weeks off in the summer.
Sure is.
It's great for being
Thank you.
responsive to the families and to the community and doing what works for them, because then they're motivated to try to get done what they need to. So we appreciate you keeping that in mind. Thank you so much.
And I'm really glad to see that we were able to give lunches and snacks, and Chef Clell,
Yes, it's a
Did
great
his
part of it.
regular job.
I know sometimes we didn't do that, but
I
it
know.
makes a big deal. Kids eating lunch together and eating. Lots of kids come and eat, so it's important to kind of know that. I also just have to say that we had a nice, that field day barbecue is still something that I know is a little extra, and we really support that. We have that support, but it means a lot, and we get all the staff. This year, Karen DeHart was our history teacher, and she worked a lot with her students on that day and how to help, and it was really amazing. I mean, me and Ms. DeHart just kind of sat back and watched how her students really ran activities with students with disabilities. Kids that you would never think would be out there were out there. Really, there's a lot to that.
Oh, great,
So we'll talk to.
great.
great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Thanks for a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Okay, we have a staff report. I believe this is in response to a request by Board Member John Knight. Report on AUSD sexual abuse training.
Yes, in light of the board's request, I decided to take a real holistic approach to our report and to look at what we have done over the last 5 years, not just what we have done last year and what we anticipate this year. So there have been 4 incidences of reported sexual abuse in the district since 2007. Not all as sensational as last year's event, but it does ring true to me that it looks, for a small district, it seems like a great number. So we want to make sure that that as a district we respond appropriately and with all due diligence really take a look at all corners of our district in terms of education. So the first thing that we did, and I think you all remember this, is that we strengthened our volunteer and driver policy and required fingerprinting that takes all volunteers through the Department of Justice system and Megan's Law. Yes?
Could we close the back door? I'm getting an echo with that back door open, I think.
And I know that was a difficult process for the board and for staff and parents, but I believe that it really did strengthen our ability to monitor the hundreds of volunteers that we have in the district. We implemented mandated child abuse training, and we implemented that last year on an annual basis. In the past, we have done it was a part of an annual handout that we would give to staff, reminding them of their responsibilities as mandated reporters. We now actually have a training where we have folks that come in and interact with staff, and we feel that that's a much more valuable way to educate staff, and that the dialogue between the trainer and staff, I think, is very helpful. So we conducted that training last year, and we are conducting a training this year. We've also included this year all classified staff. They were trained on the first day back a couple of days ago by Cynthia Tia.
Mark?
Yes.
I can't find it right now because I forgot to annotate it, but there was something in there for folks who missed the training, that
Yes.
they could take an oncoming training, but all the way up to the last one, which is in March.
Right. So
That means that we might have some people who have not been trained all the way to March.
that's true, but they received training last year as well. Remember, we're taking the standard and amping it up to an annual training.
Are there any new people who have never been trained? That's what I'm worried about.
Not that I know of. Anybody who has been hired, except for the school secretaries and custodians, I believe. Some of the day custodians were not present at the 26th.
You
but-
see, my concern
Yeah.
is that, I want to guarantee that everybody knows what they're supposed to know before March.
So let me see who has not been trained, and then we will address that,
Great.
okay?
Thank you.
We went back to look through our board policies, and we implemented the exhibit, which is basically professional guidelines for staff-student interactions. I've looked at those guidelines, and I felt that it was a very collaborative process between our teachers and staff and the district. But in looking at that, I'm going to recommend to the board that we bring to you a actual policy regarding social media and the use of social media between teachers and students that after school hours. Okay? And we're researching that right now and in the process of a draft. This year we increased our athletic director position to a .8 so we could cover the middle school with a professionally trained person who can assist with not only supervision of students, but also supervision of coaches, and to ensure that our coaches are all trained on not only mandated abuse reporting, but appropriate procedures, protocols, et cetera, for practices.
So is that one athletic director for the high
Yes.
school and middle school?
Yes, one athletic director, Zeke Lopez, was with us last year. It was his first year. He worked for us .4, so 2 days a week. We've increased him to .8. He's actually full-time with us, and he's doing some student teaching for us on a .2, so we're very pleased. He is an experienced athletic director, and so we were very, very pleased to be able to offer him that job. As you know, we had an educational forum last year to train our students on appropriate adult-student relationships. And we have in place our Identity, Health, and Society class. Now, the class does indeed talk about refusal skills and adult-student relationships and sexual abuse, but we have asked that that course be looked at and some very specific modifications made to include, to make sure that we address all the avenues of the trusted adult and what to do in terms of inappropriate relationships between students
So who
and
is
staff.
looking at that?
Our two Identity, Health, and Society teachers, along with Shelley Ball, who actually wrote the original curriculum.
Okay, so that's a 9th grade
That is a
class.
required 9th grade class.
Right, but if someone comes into the school in 10th grade, they never get that.
They don't
class.
get it.
Can we arrange some sort of more limited training for students
Yes,
who come in?
so when I get down to the bottom of my report here, I'll talk to you about what we plan to do. So Albany Middle School has had a parent workshop on how to speak to your child about sexual abuse allegations and suicide. And every child at the middle school received training in Teens for Life. Now, in terms of other procedures that we've put into place, we have increased monitoring of volunteers and coaches at both the high school and middle school, both through our administrators and our athletic director. We've increased the monitoring of volunteer driver application process. And the middle school has implemented a policy change for 13-14, which does not allow that for student aides to be assigned to staff during prep or unassigned periods.
Could you repeat that, please?
Yes. If a teacher is to receive a student aide, that aide is only assigned to that teacher during the time that the teacher is teaching a class. So if prep or their unassigned period, they will not receive an aide.
So the point is that the teacher is not alone with a student
That's
at any time.
correct. That's correct.
And what is the monitoring? You talk about monitoring coaches and,
Yes, that's through the athletic director supervision.
but
So
I
attending
guess I'm concerned
practices.
that the athletic director cannot monitor that coach every minute of the day.
No, but you train the coach.
To
And
look
you-
for certain signs, or?
We still have mandated
Training.
at the beginning of the year
Yes.
before any season starts.
Exactly.
For every single
And
coach.
and we've had that in the past, and we're still having problems.
We're intensifying the monitoring of our coaches through the athletic director position and a attentive eye.
I
in
guess I'm
terms
just
of the-
concerned, the most recent case is there was potential for monitoring that situation, and it evidently wasn't appropriately monitored. How will this
Well, that's because we didn't
monitoring-
have anyone but, at the middle school, but a principal and assistant principal with no athletic director oversight.
Okay,
Okay.
just still concerned, but thank you.
I mean, there was a time that I can remember where, because we had very limited athletic directors, that a lot of the monitoring fell on administration.
Yes.
If it was done properly, which
Okay.
is very.
And they can't be
time-consuming
at
and
every
tedious.
game, both here and away. And it's awfully tough to get out to all the practices. There are just a myriad of teams. Yes, Board Member Lowe.
I had some of the same concerns, as I'm sure many of the board members did, so perhaps you could address some of our concerns. I had asked some questions by email about the particular kinds of training. If you could describe some of the kinds of training the administration and the athletic directors will receive, and I would assume would continue to receive, because we, of course, will have changeover in personnel and so forth.
Yes. So as part of the coaches training, they, of course, receive first aid and CPR. That's just standard. But they also undergo training for the Victory with Honor, which outlines appropriate behavior between coaches and students. The athletic director has also implemented, procedures in terms of using social media, texting, drivers, volunteers and drivers on buses. All of that is being covered in an ongoing way, both at the beginning of the season, but then remember the coaches come in various parts of the season, so the athletic director is meeting with all the coaches individually as well to talk to them about the appropriate procedures, talking about appropriate student-coach interaction as well.
And this is based then on some training that he has received as
Yes.
well as the administrators have received, and what
Yes.
would be appropriate supervision and oversight of?
That's correct.
Okay.
So they would be in a position to see these kinds of situations coming where a coach or an aide or whatever, they could see that situation occurring in a room or in the
Yes.
hallway or.
Absolutely, and the athletic director will be talking specifically to the head coach in terms of how to supervise some of our volunteer coaches and assistant coaches. Some of our teams are quite large. So moving on, there is the training that fifth graders receive in puberty education. Within that training, we address the respect for self and others and being aware of boundaries and making good decisions. But it is not specific training on awareness of what sexual abuse is, what is appropriate and inappropriate in adult-student contacts. So given that, and after looking at what we do, we plan some modifications. We would like to bring in a TK through 8 curriculum to address child abuse prevention. And currently, our Director of Student Services is looking at about 7 programs, and she, in conjunction with our administration and with our staff, will be looking at what would be most appropriate to bring in. We would also like to add a day of instruction for fifth grade students focused on internet safety, cyberbullying, and the like. It's something that I think we think is missing from our curriculum. Additionally, something that is not on this report are 3 other items. One is that the YMCA has partnered with the district and will be delivering darkness to light training, which is how to identify and look for signs of sexual abuse in children and how to deal with it once you either uncover the problem or suspect it. That training will be delivered, we think, during some staff development time in October, and they will bring the trainers in to our staff, and it's for staff. So we're very excited about that. Additionally, I have met with Zeke Lopez, and we have talked about student safety, and he has made some recommendations that we are in the, we're analyzing in terms of implementing this year. And that would be the elimination of using the vans that the district purchased in the worst of fiscal times in about 2002. So we would eliminate the volunteer drivers. And we think that that would take us a long way to ensure safety. So transportation would be developed and implemented through contracts with professional bus companies, transportation companies. The second part of his analysis is to add assistant coaches in some of the larger teams where we have either not had adult supervision or we have used volunteers. So these would be paid assistant coaches in particularly the middle school in the area of track and field. And there was a couple of other recommendations he had. And I think that these really need to be brought to the board in terms of approval for increased student safety. So we continue to analyze what we do in this district and how we do it. We want to partner with our teachers in order to make them feel safe as well as our students feel safe. So this is a ongoing process. Do you have any questions?
I'm really glad to see this because clearly this is quite comprehensive. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I'm particularly happy that it's continuing and you're continuing to look at it. I wanted to clarify a couple of things as I was reading through this, and you did actually clarify a couple as you were speaking, but one question I have is about item 10. You have the Albany Middle School looking at the procedures and oversight. Is that just at the middle school? Or are we also reviewing procedures at high school and so on?
This came from Principal Brill and the former Principal Parenti. I did not ask the high school at that, specifically to increase. This was at the middle school's decision after reviewing their after-school athletic program.
Right, but to the extent that there might be any need for increasing oversight in high school programs.
I will ask.
I had the sense that you have that in mind from everything else you said, but I didn't see it in the list, so I just wanted to make sure that was out there. Great, yeah, no, and I think the key thing here is just continuing to push forward. I'm really eager to see the social media policy. That's going to be tricky to craft, I know,
yes, it is.
But I think we need to do something along those lines. Yeah, thank you.
So we'll see some of these items coming to us on the consent calendar?
Yes.
With numbers. I know there's a cost
Yes.
differential between, obviously, for renting buses and assistant coaches, which I think is a great idea. And I think it's great that we increase the athletic director. That's been something a long time coming.
Thank you.
Oh, and just quickly, so one other thing that occurred to me, because you mentioned quite a few trainings, and I know that some of this has to occur during staff development. Is there a risk of impinging on other needed trainings like Common Core, or were you still in the process of sort of planning out what the staff development days would consist of?
Yeah, the principals have worked really hard over the summer to ensure that we have dedicated time to work on professional development regarding Common Core. We did take time out of our very meager professional development days to do this training, and we'll continue to do it because it is, I think, a highest priority for us. Common Core is very important, but student safety is more important.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a comment from our union rep.
Hi, I'm Susan Adams, president of CA. I just want to thank you for the training yesterday for our people during their work time. That was great to see. That means that everyone's on the same page, and I wanted to express my appreciation. Thanks.
That was
Thank
the
you,
training on this issue?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure, Nick.
Never do this, but I also I just want to say, since I'm here and I'm part of this, I also want to express my appreciation as a parent of my daughter goes to Cornell School. I think it's really smart recognizing working together with the YMCA and bringing other organizations in on the trainings and the conversations, because I think they're the same kids we're talking about. There's a lot of the same staff and a lot of the same people. So I just think that's the piece that's been missing in a lot of the conversations, is this is really an Albany thing, and it's not just the school district, but if everybody's on the same page, it makes a big difference. So I liked hearing that YMCA part.
So as a teacher, do you find this acceptable process, a new oversight by administrators?
It sounds very comprehensive, and I know this is where, you said it, there's the Common Core, there's a lot of things in the air, but I think prioritizing it all and approaching it all is very wise, so.
Thank you.
Thank
you for the feedback.
Thanks, Nick. Anyone else? Okay. Any more comments, questions? I think we.
Thanks for that report.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent.
And I can get back to. We're here. Uh-oh.
Persons to address?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I wanted to be sure, though. Okay. Persons to address the board on matters not on the agenda. Does anyone wish to address the board? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to our review and discussion items, first of which is safe routes to schools, Ocean View Elementary School sidewalk.
Yes, I see Don's here tonight. Thank you, Don. Don brought to my attention and to your attention and to planning and zoning's attention a potentially unsafe situation at Ocean View. And I did not include the picture, but if you were, you're all familiar with Ocean View. If you're looking at Ocean View from Jackson, just looking at the front of the school, on the very left-hand side of the campus, you see a fire lane with a fence that comes right up to the fire lane. If you continue to the left of the fence, you are on UC Berkeley's property, and there is the screening with old shrubs and sort of a Cordnesis Creek screening. We've identified that fence as the fence line of our property, okay? Children and parents walking from Ocean View, from UC Village to Ocean View, have only one sidewalk to walk on, and that is directly in front of the campus. So as they cross the fire lane, you're also crossing the parent pickup drop-off / parking. Parents use this very consistently to pick up their student or drop off their student or pull into park. So it's not only that driveway that students and parents must cross, but then you walk continuing about 30 feet in an island, and you have to step off again to get to the front of school. You have to cross that drop-off pickup zone again. So it's 2 times that we expose students, I think, to potential unsafe conditions.
Do the kids actually walk across? Or
No,
do they just walk
they
through the-
walk through the
Right.
parking lot.
That's what I would think.
And I would have to say that University Village parents are very good about walking there. I very rarely see students walking without parents, but they're walking with their children and strollers and backpacks and scooters and all. Don had a great idea, and that is, why don't we take this opportunity while we have a developer who's very interested in developing a retail establishment on the corner of Monroe and San Pablo, and why don't we ask them via the city council and via the school district to do two things. One, they could build a boardwalk or some type of a structure, and UC could provide the land right adjacent to the fence in terms of an easement. And we would then siphon off all those children and route them down the side of the fire lane, and then they would cross more in the middle of the campus rather than in a very dangerous parking lot with a lot of traffic. We have talked to UC, we have talked to Jeff Bond, and both UC and Jeff Bond indicated that it would be very difficult. First, very expensive to build. Secondly, it provides screening for the UC housing. They didn't, and Jeff then added the additional piece that it would be very difficult to impose as part of the development structure, a requirement for any developer to actually build a boardwalk. But Don got me thinking about this, and I realized that we can do something right now. Well, first of all, you need to know that whatever we do now is going to be rather temporary, because we know that Ocean View needs to be seismically retrofitted and or rebuilt. We haven't made that decision yet. The Facilities Steering Committee will be making a recommendation to the board. But in the meantime, we need to do something. One of the thoughts that I had was that we create a walking path right down the fire lane. That would mean that teachers would no longer be able to park in the back, but they shouldn't be parking back there anyhow. I think that should be car-free. It should be used strictly as a fire lane. We could actually put up a balustrade? A bollard. The way that we have the bollard at the middle school, which prevents cars to come in and out when, yeah, and at the high school too, but it's removable. So if you needed to use it for fire trucks, they just come and they'd remove it. That way, we could route those kids in a well-marked traffic lane down just the way Dawn had suggested, crossing them right over in the middle of the campus without having to go through the process of developer, UC, easement, and the like. And that could be done immediately. And I think that with a well-marked walking path and adult attention, helping parents to remember that that's what we want them to do, would create a more safe environment for the children. I know that Don also had an idea about the traffic signal, which I totally support, and also support, if you think it would be in the best interest of the district, to actually request that Planning and Zoning Commission address this and see how far we could get. I'm not opposed to that, but in the meantime, I think we need to fix it, and I do think that this is a possibility.
So to do this, we would just need to open up the fence, put some kind of striping in so we don't violate the fire codes, and temporarily make sure that kids and parents know that this is the way to go.
Right, we'd
And
have
then
to
we
put
could,
in
come up
a
with-
bollard there, so we
Yeah.
wouldn't want to risk kids
Right.
walking down a fire lane, which is a single lane, and have a car coming out at them, so you'd really have to have that put in place
And that would
first.
take digging a hole and sinking in it with a chain, you know, with a sleeve. Yeah, just like that would take how long? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay,
He can do it on his way home if you want.
Do we have
I
adequate
got
parking
a
for
big
the
ass.
teachers?
We do.
Where do they park?
Well, you have the parking in front of the school on the east side of Jackson. You have all the new bulb out parking along Buchanan. There's plenty of parking.
Okay.
Actually,
And
when I taught at McGregor, I ended up parking back on the basketball courts behind the school. because there was no other place to park, so the parking is tight.
Well, but you didn't park on Buchanan, and now there is.
That's true. There's
There's
better
a
parking on
lot
Buchanan
of parking
now.
available on Buchanan.
That's true.
And long-term, we'd need to come up with some plan on how to put in a light and all the other things that Dawn was talking about.
Right, and long-term, we need a much better parking parent drop-off zone at Ocean View. It's one of the few sites that we could actually make really proactive changes. Now, Aleda Chavez, I
City
can't
of
remember her
Albany.
last name, City of Albany.
Adreno
Chavez.
She's also a
Alida.
parent.
Yes,
Alida.
Aleda.
But Adreno Chavez is her last name.
Yes.
Alida is her first name, and she's also a parent in the district.
She has been marvelous to work with, and she has volunteered to assist us in looking at ways that we can improve the safety, safe routes to school. So I'm pretty excited about working together with her as well. But once again, I am not opposed at all to a board resolution or, some type of language that might, that might raise the awareness of the developer and UC to the increased traffic, the expectation of increased traffic when that development does come in, and might set the stage for traffic
Would it be
signal
possible
as
to put
well.
something together for the next meeting?
It would be,
And maybe Dawn can help word that?
yeah.
Alan?
So I had a couple of comments and then a question. Creek restoration people are very, very protective of their creek banks, and that's a very tight creek bank as it is. You're going to have to deal with the creek people as well. I think you've got a great case, and they can be persuaded, but you do need to consider them. Also, this is not Cordonices Creek, it's Village Creek. Cordonices Creek is on the border of Berkeley and Albany, on the other side of the village. Village Creek, so if you're talking about the creek, you need to be accurate. And then also on the signal, I'm not sure what that means. Could you describe a little more particularly where it's located and what its function is?
It's the corner of Monroe and Jackson, where it turns into Red Oak. And, and Don can maybe speak to it a little bit, but it certainly would slow down.
Well, I guess them to slow down before they
Control.
get to the intersection in front of Ocean View.
Well, it's really more for the protection of the UC Village
Well, that makes a lot of
parents and
sense. I understand
students that are
Sure.
walking
We've been looking for
towards
that for a long time.
Ocean View.
Why don't you come up, Dawn, and explain what you just gave us?
I'm sorry you all don't have a copy. I emailed it to you, but I thought I emailed it for an update. But so I wanted to give you an update on a couple fronts. Regarding the land here, I kind of agree that maybe to lose parking in front of the school may be difficult. I don't know if there's a way to move the fence just back a little on to the UC property without maybe necessarily construction, or maybe when I went to the Planning Commission and presented this, there was someone from the Creek organization, and they said they would like to work with this idea.
Good.
I said, rather than cement, maybe a wooden kind of boardwalk, so it'll blend more into the natural environment. And they said, oh, we'd like to work with you on that.
Good.
So, so the Creek people were there at that meeting when I presented this, and I haven't yet reached out back to them because I wanted to kind of see where things progress. So I would be also kind of concerned about losing any more parking, in front of the school, because I know having parked there many times, it's kind of at a premium. Even though we're within easy walking distance, I don't walk very much. So, anyways, which it's horrible to say, but so in regard to that, that's my thoughts is, losing that parking might be it might create a further backup on Jackson Street. If people can't come in, drop off, and then exit, I just would be a little concerned if it would create more of a backup on Jackson.
Well, I think they could, though, Dawn, if we created that walking, the
The
sidewalk.
cars could still exit
Oh,
out?
yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
They could still exit,
Okay. So
but it
yes.
would take adult monitoring.
that, I think, is going to be hard because these are grad students, and especially during finals, it's harder to get parent volunteers, especially around finals time. Having organized a lot of fundraisers at Ocean View and needing parents, we always try to do it when there wasn't finals because, they're pretty well tapped. A lot of them are working full-time and going school part-time, but they have very rigorous workloads and school loads. Regarding the four-way lighted intersection, I learned about this at the Planning Commission meeting. I was looking at the map, and I noticed there was no picture of Ocean View. It wasn't like it existed. And I asked the people at the commission and the developer present, when I looked at the map that they had, I said, well, I don't see Ocean View on here, and I hope you recognize that there's an elementary school very close to this development. And a lot of kids, including my daughter, used to come by way of Monroe to Jackson to get to school. And I said, is there a lighted intersection here? I was very naive. I just assumed that was part of the plan with, more traffic, that they would just put a lighted intersection in. And I was told by the developer, no, that they weren't planning to do that. Jeff Bond said that there was an ERI, an environmental impact report done when Whole Foods was going to go in, and that determined that there wasn't enough traffic to make a state-mandated light at that intersection. And Jeff had sent me the 2009 report. When I looked at the report, what I found was the data set that they had used to determine there was not enough traffic was taken from a data set of like 2006 and 2007, while the massive University Village expansion of all the apartments was not completed until the end towards 2008. So all those additional University Village residents were not captured in the data set that was taken and put into the 2009 report. So whether or not there's more traffic and whether or not it would cross that threshold of the state mandated amount, I don't know. It's hard to say. And given that this project is pretty far along, I don't know if it's possible to ask that another traffic report now be done when school is in session, not during a staff development day, but when school is in session, and also, given that there's now, it would then capture the additional people from University Village. I did go to the Traffic Commission after the Planning Commission, and one of the commissioners said, well, this thing's pretty far along. It's kind of late in the game to be bringing this up. And I guess I haven't been as civically responsible as I should in keeping up on everything because I didn't know until July that, things were moving forward where the center was going to go in. I think it's great that there is going to be a grocery store there and that they're going to develop the land. I think that's wonderful. The only thing, having gone that way and volunteering, with vests standing in front of the street to help the kids get by, I just know it's going to be a little bit more dangerous for them. And even though my daughter today started at Albany High as a freshman, and I have no more kids in the school, it was something that, I kind of saw and wished for when she was there at Ocean View, and just when things kind of died down, I didn't pursue it further, and so. If you have any
It wouldn't
questions.
seem we'd need a state-mandated light in order to get a light in there. I mean, they should care about Albany kids.
Yeah.
So
But-
certainly the board can take some action to try to influence the city to do that.
Yeah. What I understand from Jeff Bond is that that land, that road is University Village, and it's up to UC to make a decision if they want to put a light in, whether it's state mandated or not. That, if it's state mandated, then it kind of forces the issue on them, but it's like this, from the impression I got was that the city's hands were kind of tied because that was property owned and the road was controlled by the university.
Maybe it's time for a 2x2x2.
That's just what I was going to suggest. Yep.
Is that like a 2x4?
No, it's the
district
city and the
UC
university and the school district meeting together to talk about common issues.
Yeah.
Also, the Traffic and Safety Commission can request a traffic study after this is installed when it becomes obvious there are traffic problems. And you may still get the light after the development. It could cause problems now, but there are definitely possibilities in the future to get that traffic light in with sufficient data to support the need.
Has anybody projected what the traffic might be like after the development is there? Because definitely will be a change.
No, that's what the EIR is all about. They've got to.
But they're using old data for their traffic.
But it was
studies.
completed.
No, they did the
Yeah, it
study
was
with
complete.
projections.
They did the study,
Yes,
and it
they
was
had to.
accepted.
Okay.
Yeah, because
And I think we
We
looked
weren't
at it, and we
watching.
also responded to it back in 2009.
We did.
But like I said, so I was kind of surprised, like just the data set seemed to be kind of old and didn't capture the additional housing.
yeah, well, I'm
From
glad you
University
noticed
Village.
that. It's so easy to miss things like that.
Oh, yeah, it was kind of a thick
kidding.
report. So I could kind of
You've done a tremendous lot of work and a great job.
No, I feel like it hasn't been enough. Also, too, the Safe Routes to School, Rachel, she's going to be reaching out, I think, to Marla and to Jeff and to the UC to do what's called like a walking audit.
That's right.
And so that from this walking audit, there may be other proposals that come up even beyond what this is. It could be, even different suggestions. So this was just one idea, and, having more minds out there always helps. So, you have any other questions?
Don, when do you expect the results of that walking audit? Did she say anything about a timeline? Or?
I met with Rachel and other members of the Safe Schools to Route like last week, and they were going to be putting the ball forward. She was going to be reaching out to make to contact all the stakeholders involved, and I think she wanted to move sometime this month quickly because she knows there's another planning commission meeting coming up in September.
Okay.
That addresses the center. So
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Don.
Yeah,
Thank you, Don.
Get a copy of this. Okay, we have a series of board policy updates to look at. Do we need to wait for Marla to come back, or can we move on with these? Okay, so we have board policy update guide. Okay, we don't need to discuss that one. The first reading, board policy 3311 bids. Any comments, questions on board policy 3311?
Yeah, I have a question on that. We've eliminated the wording on the piggyback, and I saw something later on in a different policy that sort of alluded to it, but it's on the very first page, on page 44, right in the middle, when the board has determined that it's best interest of the district may piggyback onto the contract. Is that something that's gone or isn't done anymore?
No, and I think they actually moved it to the AR.
I saw,
instead of
yeah.
PDP.
It didn't seem explicit in the AR, but I'd have to look at it
But
again.
no, it is still absolutely available.
Okay. So I'm not sure that I'm
Which paragraph?
comfortable taking it out of the board policy. It's the
Page 44.
third paragraph. And it says when the board
Yeah, I
has.
got it.
to read through, but I'm almost
Yeah.
certain they placed it in the AR instead of.
Yeah, I did see it
board
somewhere
policy.
else.
I
Yeah.
did also, but it was worded differently, and I didn't track that, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure in the future that folks
Yeah, that it's
who
still
aren't
in there.
familiar with that know that that's something we can do.
Yes, and it is.
So the
And I'll
board
double-
responsibility is retained? It
Pardon me?
says the board, when the board has determined that responsibility of the board determining appears,
What page are you on?
He's going to
I'm on
pitch.
page 44, the third paragraph, where it says, when the board has determined that it is in the best interest.
Right.
Does the board still have the responsibility to determine when it is in the best interest?
If there's a piggyback available, absolutely.
It's in the middle of page 45. That paragraph is just moved.
Is it just moved?
Yes,
Yeah.
middle of page 45. I don't
Oh.
think it's reported.
Yeah,
Huh.
okay.
It
I
sure
was going to
is.
say, you know.
I wish I wish my eyes were
Yeah.
better.
I would too.
And I don't know
I
if
just
you
have-
guys have noticed, but
I read
know
every word of this, and-
Redoing these, many times they're exactly the same. They have just shifted where they have the information.
Yeah.
Why, I don't know.
I missed
Blame
that
Microsoft.
entirely.
It's just a word thing.
And I know it's in the AR also.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, my bad.
Anything else on that one?
No.
How about the AR?
I'm sorry. I had a question on page.
Pat, could you talk into the mic?
I'm sorry. I had a question on page. Is it part of the AR, the award of contract, that question that I had about?
Oh, right.
Okay, so I am on page, I'm sorry, let me just tell you here.
Up on top.
I am on page 57,
Oh, 57.
okay, under award of contract,
Okay.
under number
I
one.
think you're in, all right, 57, okay.
Am I too far?
No, that's all right.
Okay, where it says, I had a question about the first statement under award of contract. When the contract is for the
Oh, yeah.
procurement and/or maintenance of electronic data processing systems and supporting software, in which case the board may contract with any one of the three lowest responsible bidders. So the question that I had asked the staff and that Lori had been kind enough to answer was, I was wondering if this is just boilerplate language for this particular kind of service, because it seems like it opens us up to some liability. It's kind of unclear about how we decide which of the three we decide to take. And did you want to explain maybe
Well,
how?
you know, there's always been an alternative bid process for technological supplies and equipment. Why, I don't know. Perhaps to provide districts more leeway in deciding on which vendor they wish to choose. You know, it does leave a little more flexibility for the district.
So,
And
so in that case, you might actually choose based on services most appropriate for your particular district.
Correct.
That would probably be the most common reason.
Most common, or, you know, I know in the you know, the tech part of the district, a lot of times you have vendors that you have worked with in the past, and they're very familiar with your sites or your wiring or, you know, your hardware, software, so perhaps you want to continue that relationship. Kind of gives you a little bit of an option.
So it's really just then a matter, in this case, since you're not just automatically taking the lowest bidder, of documenting why you chose
Yes.
this
Yes.
particular?
You know, I think that would be wise.
Okay.
If they opted for one that perhaps wasn't the lowest.
Exactly.
Certainly to document why, you know, could be historical relationship with the vendor, could be, you know, perhaps they're providing, you know, not necessarily apples to apples, but maybe a different quality of device that was quoted. So, you know, I think if you document your decision process.
So then, just for my understanding for the future, where would that be documented? How would we make sure that we, you know, that was clarified and that we would have
Well,
that down
usually,
somewhere?
before we bring, like, you know, 3 RFPs, or we look at that, we document that all at the district office, for example.
Uh-huh.
So if, you know, the tech department opts to purchase whatever they happen to purchase. They certainly get several quotes,
Uh-huh.
and they keep the documentation, and Dawn already left, but I know Dawn is excellent about that.
Uh-huh.
You know, keeping the quotes, you know, documenting it, putting it in a file so that you have it, so that if somebody does come back and say, why did you opt for number 1 instead of number 3, you have the documentation.
Okay.
It might be a good idea, since the contract has to come to the board for approval.
To
If
have
the
that
board
accompany.
information says this was not the lowest bidder and here's why.
Right, right,
So then the board will explicitly be approving that.
right.
So I guess maybe that's what I'm asking too. I think that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a question about the following paragraph, actually, as long as we're on this page. Paragraph 2, I couldn't understand the intent of this paragraph. I couldn't tell, the way it was worded, whether we were trying to encourage contracting with the parent, guardian of a student, or avoid it.
Okay, which page? I'm sorry.
The same page we were on, let's see, 57, number 2, under
Number
award
2.
of contract. I just found the wording of that paragraph totally confusing. It says the board may contract with other than the lowest bidder, but I can't figure out why.
You know, I probably can tell you they're quoting Ed.
Could you speak in the microphone, please?
They're quoting Ed code
Yeah, I
on
was
that
afraid
section.
of that, and that, you know, before I let out a bid, I'd want to talk to a lawyer to find out what
Yeah.
that's supposed to mean, because
Maybe we
just
can
don't
find
understand.
make
Yep.
sense of it and reword it for our own
Sure.
use.
Yeah.
You could do that.
And also on that page, can you explain what competitive negotiation means?
And where's that?
I had the same question.
Alternative bid procedures for technological supplies and equipment. Rather than seek competitive bids, the board may use competitive negotiation.
Right, and I believe Brian has actually done that, is where you use vendor, I hate to put it this way, but vendor against vendor, using competitive negotiations with,
Oh, you call them up and say, so-and-so offered me this?
there you go.
Yeah, okay.
Can you do better? Can you offer us a
Can you
better
do-
price? Here's,
Oh, all right, it's like shopping for a car.
exactly, exactly.
That's once you have the bids, then you do
No,
negotiations?
instead of the bids, it's.
You don't have to, this is an alternative bid process for technology.
Competitive negotiations is an alternative bid process?
Yes,
So you can go out to 2 or 3 people,
absolutely,
companies, and say, this guy gave me this price?
absolutely.
Without going through a bidding process?
It's an exception in the law with the Ed code and public contract code.
And this is all done privately by Dawn, say, for example?
I'm sure they, well, I know Dawn and I know Brian, they all keep documentation of, you know,
And is there a dollar limit on what you can do with negotiations?
No.
I mean, could you do a $10 million contract negotiating it, or do you need to go out for bids?
well, you would see the final contract if we did an actual contract, but we're just talking about the bid process and the procedure and the alternative to the bid process. So it's more of a negotiation. Once we entered into the contract, you would certainly see that contract.
I understand, under the board policy, which requires us to see
Contracts,
contracts over a
right.
specific amount.
But it also gives people who are purchasing technology supplies the flexibility to, instead of having everything sort of, you know, undercover until the last moment, and then we reveal what the bids were, it gives you some flexibility to use vendor against vendor to actually receive the best price. I don't make the
All kind of
rules.
challenges coming from that for the loser of the contract.
You know, it's an ed code and it's public contract
Yeah.
code, and as long as we follow the rules and the law, then we're well within reason.
Okay, I just wanted to point out on page 53, there's a paragraph that's repeated, so I think just delete one of them. Supplementary textbooks, library books.
Oh, right.
That's in there twice.
Got it.
Okay, so anything else on 3311? Alan?
Yeah, on page 54, there's paragraph 3 that talks about the situation for repairs, that we don't go out for bid on repairs. And that's because we normally do it with our in-house staff. Is that why, or is there some other reason why we don't want?
Well, it depends on if you read down below, whether or not it's considered a quote-unquote public project.
Right.
If it's typical maintenance and they're just repairing a classroom, then no, it's not a public project.
Yeah, we wouldn't go out for bid.
Correct,
We do it ourselves.
right. Or we might,
contract.
yeah, or we might contract with somebody to
We
come in
might
and do it.
contract.
But it certainly doesn't fall under the.
For instance, we just did that when we converted the SELPA classroom up at the Children's Center to a TK classroom. We hired, retained a contractor. We looked at the 3 bids, you see, but it's not considered a public project. But we don't have the maintenance staff to be able to do that, plus do all the customary
So
stuff.
you don't have to go out for bid for that
No.
kind of a contract. You're
No.
not going to get a painter objecting to sole sourcing, basically.
No, you still go out and get your lowest bid, but you do not need to consider it a public contract.
And then if we get a lowest bidder, I just want to make sure that we have protection here. If we get a lowest bidder that we have used in the past and they have done a very poor job and we never want to see them again, but they're the lowest bidder, we can justify not hiring them by our evaluation of their performance.
I don't know that you can do that for prior services rendered. I know I sent Board Member Lowe, and I'm looking for it now, there is a note section that does say why you can award a contract to the bidder who is not the lowest, and I don't believe it talks about prior performance.
However, you can write into the contract what happens if the performance is not satisfactory.
Absolutely,
so-
then you have.
Right.
Right.
And
Well, how are we protected? from
with
that?
the insurance, bonded, they're bonded
Yeah.
and they have insurance.
They have bid
For what?
bonds, they have performance bonds.
So you are not protected if a contractor bids a job for our district who has done work for us in the past and the work was not satisfactory, you can't use past performance as a reason not to award the bid. You have to award the bid, but they have to have appropriate insurance,
Oh.
and that's your level of protection.
Are there reasons that you can use?
There are lots of reasons you can use. The key would be to create a request for a quote, an RFQ, that would reference the problems that you've had in the past. In other words, you'd create language in that would ensure that perhaps that particular bidder would not qualify for whatever you've specified in the contract. That's about all you can do.
I think we could work with that, couldn't we? If there were a bidder that we really preferred not to have do the work, we could qualify the contract so that bidder was not qualified?
That would be tricky.
It would be very tricky to do.
Well-
You can generally create a contract that has much tighter, for instance, much tighter specifications for how many days the work should take. Okay, so that has been a problem for us in our recent past in building the pool, where it took 111 days more than we had anticipated. So we would, and the issue was that I don't think we did due diligence on how long it should have taken. So when you write these contracts, it's incumbent upon the district, I think, to really look at all of the past public
Yeah, it is.
works projects that you've done, the problems that you've encountered, and then to ensure that you've done your homework when you write that quote, to make sure that or that request for a quote, that you've addressed all of those issues or you could do pre-qualification. You can always, we did that in the pool as well, we could do it on a public works project. And that means that the bidder must have had certain types of experiences with public works projects. But that's about it.
Okay. Anything else on
That's
this?
troubling.
On this AR? Can we move on to the next one?
Yes.
All right. AR 3514, environmental safety, business and non-instructional operations. Comments or questions on this one? I had one observation, anyway, on tobacco-free schools, where it's saying, number 11 at the bottom of page 63, staff and students shall be asked to refrain from, among other things, using perfume or cologne, scented lotion or hairspray, nail polish or nail polish remover, or other personal care products that are not fragrance-free. And I was just thinking that's going to be an awfully hard one to, I mean, we can ask them, I guess.
You could ask. Yeah. And it's the same thing with animals in the classroom. You know, it's also an asthma issue. And, you know, we try to limit it and we try to make the parents aware, but, you know, you can only do so much.
It's going to be harder than dress code.
Yeah.
I don't think this means that you can't wear nail polish. It
It's-
means you shouldn't be applying it in school.
No, it says it shouldn't, if you wear nail polish, it should be fragrance-free.
Once it's hard, I've never heard of it. Maybe I'm ignorant. Maybe there is fragrance.
I would be
yeah.
very surprised if
No.
there wasn't.
All right, fair enough.
But
Anyway.
Lauren, have you ever been made aware as a student that you were not supposed to use fragrances and wear them to class?
From what I know of, in my Spanish class, nearly all of the girls have applied nail polish in class. And I mean, we don't care about it as much as this might suggest, but I think this is a good idea. I think wearing nail polish or light perfume is fine, but applying in class might be a little more distracting.
Okay, but you haven't heard that there's actually a policy that you're not
No.
supposed to? Okay.
And, you know, this is an AR, and I think really the
This is new,
intent
though.
is if a teacher or a classroom is aware that there is an asthma issue within the classroom, here are some of the things that you could do.
But back in the day, you know, students would shower after PE, and now they use various fragrances instead, and sometimes it's a little overwhelming, at least for us old folks.
Yeah. Okay, Alan?
I guess the first question I have is under the water section on page 64. How often are we testing our drinking water for these contaminants?
We tested the water in 2008 and found all of our drinking water to be within the limits of.
And nothing is likely to have happened between 2008?
Well, we could
last
test it
5
again.
years?
We could test it again.
I can't hear
We
you.
could test it again.
We will, or,
We could.
but it's typically 5 years, or is it 6 months, twice a year, or what's appropriate?
I don't know what the industry
best
standard
practice?
is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the water district, we get water from the public utility, right?
Yes.
And they test, of course, all the time.
Yeah.
but
Although
we're running it through our
we run it through
systems.
galvanized
right.
pipes, et cetera, depending on the age of the school. And we did do testing in 2008, and I will check on the industry standard for that.
And could we, after we do that, could we write it into the AR? I mean, if the industry standard is 5 years, then maybe it should say 5
We
years.
could.
We could write that in.
It's a good idea.
I mean, the question, how often do we do it, that's a valid question.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then we have at the pool, we currently have a mold issue. And I'm just wondering how this process or this policy addresses that issue.
Well, the mold issue is a malfunction of our HVAC equipment. And we are analyzing whether it's a combination of malfunction only, or malfunction and a design flaw. So we are addressing that. Currently, we have the equipment running 24/7 in order to dry out the area and have rebalanced the equipment to original specifications. And we are now looking to see if if the equipment actually can handle the temperature of the air and the moisture in the air. And if it can't, then we will be asking our architect to create a fix for it. Once it's fixed, we will dry out the room completely, and then we will apply a mold-resistant primer to the ceiling and repaint.
And that goes back, and I meant to ask this for the last AR, to the question about contracts, and we have a contractor who built the pool, and if this was a flaw in the building, which from what I'm
Could be.
understanding, it could be, what's our,
Well, okay, so that would not be the contractor unless the contractor did not install the equipment
Right.
properly. That would
So
be.
the architect.
That would be the architect. Now, the architect does have errors and omissions insurance, but we would have to, it's a dogfight at this point. But we still have held $33,000,
Thank you.
is still being held for the final payment for the architect, so we might have a little leverage if that indeed is the problem.
I mean, I just asked that because it's very typical of, what Alan was bringing up, and then, how do you make sure that the project, and what do you do with that contractor and/or architect if things didn't turn out right?
Yes.
Which could possibly be the case.
Could possibly.
Yeah. So it was very wise to hold the payment.
I mean, I think this is an important issue, but how does it directly relate to, are we suggesting that we're going to make modifications in this? We're supposed to be looking at the AR, right? And making suggestions about any revisions we want to make. So, not that this isn't an important topic, but are we on topic? Or,
I went back a topic, so.
okay.
But it does, I mean, there are obviously contaminants of some sort. Mold is a contaminant, so that's what we're talking about now.
Okay, so are we making any suggestions for revisions then? No.
There was only one revision, and that was the inclusion of how often to, if there was an industry standard for testing water
Testing
quality.
water.
Yes, that makes
Good one.
sense.
Makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I get off base of test.
We do have, air conditioning systems should be inspected at least annually and problems corrected within a reasonable time.
Right.
So it does come under that. And I believe we have issues. HVAC and air quality issues at the high school and middle school as well, so we will be addressing all of that. Okay, are we ready to move on to BP 3350?
Yes.
Travel expenses, page 68. Anything on that one?
It's a typo on page 72. I'm sure
Oh.
somebody else caught it. I'll just,
72.
I didn't catch it.
an employee may be used a district credit card, first line in the second paragraph.
I see it. Okay.
It's not a big deal that it's a typo.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are
we
you
have-
looking at the draft or the track
track
changes?
That's a tract.
The last
Page
paragraph.
72, the
But they
last
should be the
paragraph,
same.
first line.
When
When
approved
approved by
the-
superintendent designee, an employee may be use a district credit
May
card.
use.
May use.
No B.
Just strike the B.
Thank you.
I had a question,
Take it off,
actually.
Paul, you didn't see it?
I probably did see it and just let it go
Dig.
by, yeah.
So
But
it's
I-
fun to get one that Paul didn't catch. Okay.
Yeah, it is confusing to have two versions of the
It
same.
is, because
I would- I
somebody will
would-
be using the tract and then
Yeah,
someone
I
else is
know.
on the draft.
I would rather actually in the future just see the track changes,
Yeah,
not
I
the
I skip
draft.
right through the draft because I want to see what.
What the
eliminated as
changes
well.
are, yeah,
Yeah, I think, yeah, we're wasting
That would
time.
save us a lot of work.
Yeah.
yeah. So on page 71, the first non-crossed out line, this is something new. All out-of-state travel for which reimbursement will be claimed shall be approved in advance by the board. That's new, right?
That is new language.
So we have never seen in a board packet a list of expected travel expenses that we had to
For out of
pre-approve.
state,
Out of state.
out of state. I don't know that I've.
In the past, it's only been approved by the superintendent, I believe.
I don't know
Right.
that we've
Yeah,
had
so-
any out of
Well,
state
we have.
reimbursements.
Well, we must have because we have field trips out of state. People must ask
But there's
teachers
no-
who are, No?
No, we don't. Yes, Marcia?
Student body maybe, or ASB?
It just,
Yeah.
well, if it never happens, it's not an issue, but I thought it was
Conferences,
interesting.
I've gone to conferences out of,
We do have a few field trips that go out of state, and they are brought to the board prior to the students and the staff taking those trips. The only exception would be if one of our athletic teams were to qualify for a national and we didn't have enough time to bring it to the board for approval. It would still go to the superintendent for approval and would be brought to you for ratification.
I'm reading this more as a staff member
Yeah, I-
leaving the state, for example, if a member of the district needs to go to a conference in Washington DC. Isn't that what we're talking about here?
I think it'd be student or staff.
Student or staff?
Yeah.
Because most of this talks
Anyway,
about
that was just an
employees.
observation. It was
Right.
not, I don't think it's going to be a big deal, but
No, I don't, I'm just,
I just was thinking I've never seen anything like that, so, okay.
yeah, it's a change.
Can we move on to the 4,000s?
Okay.
4112.42, drug and alcohol testing for school transportation drivers, which might be more of an issue for moving to buses.
Well, now, only if we run our own buses.
Oh, this only applies to our own drivers?
Yes. Now, the mandated policy, we are considering our van drivers, school transportation drivers, even though technically they're not driving buses. And as such, we need to include this change in 4112.42, which incorporates that we must follow the drug testing, the alcohol and drug testing must follow federal guidelines. So you can see the changes under track changes here. Sometimes, of course, you know that some of the changes are wordsmithing and others are substantial. So what you have accommodation here is some wordsmithing and then the substantial changes following federal law.
Contracted bus drivers with an outside company but are mandated to, through their company to do the
Yes.
same.
Yeah.
Okay. Any comments, questions on this one?
So none of this could apply to volunteers, right? This
No.
has nothing to do with that.
No, it does not. Only school employees.
Okay.
All right. BP 5131.2 on bullying.
Yeah, Marcia, why don't you come on up here and you can speak from the mic.
We have a change here to uniform complaint procedures. Was there anything else in here?
So the only change to the board policy was to take, you'll see some of the language takes it out of the, referring to like the sexual harassment policy and saying we have to use the uniform complaint process when reporting bullying.
That's the only change, I think. so,
Correct.
yeah.
All right. That's all I saw.
And that was a state-required change.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. Alan?
So on page 83, we talk about a means of students reporting bullying. I think we've had a problem with students feeling comfortable reporting. Are we doing anything to enhance that situation so maybe students feel more compelled or more comfortable in reporting bullying situations?
I don't know if, we haven't done anything specifically different, but we have counselors and we are doing some curriculum around cyberbullying and, you know, the reporting of that and processes that make students aware that they shouldn't tolerate it and that there's a way to report that safely and anonymously.
And with our new policy for looking at sexual abuse situations, we should have more opportunities about the bullying issues as well.
If they're
That the same
related,
people can
yes.
see the,
It absolutely could
Yeah.
be. Mhm.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, track changes. Child Care and Development, AR 5148. Anything on that one? We could wait for Ron to come back to see if he had any. We can come back to it. Let's see. Oh, let's see. I had something here. What's this? Oh, that was, all right. And then there's AR 5148.3, which is similar but different.
Correct.
I made the mistake of thinking they were related, but they're actually not. So, questions or comments on that one?
Are we waiting for Ron?
Well, we'll ask him when he gets back. I guess we can wait a couple minutes to see. Turns out since that's the last of the policies. And we have a review and action next, so we should wait for Ron.
Is,
Ron, did you have anything on the last two ARs on
Hold on a second.
preschool, early childhood education?
I don't think I did.
Okay, no one else did.
I have a question on page 89.
89, okay.
Actually, it's not just there, but it's the whole thing. How many children are we really talking about that are being denied a spot at the child care center? That they have to be, what's the word we're using? De-enrolled or whatever the word is, because of too many students needing the service.
Is that on the topic of, I mean, I think it is an important question.
Aren't we talking about childcare and the students that are qualified or not qualified? I believe that's on page 89.
Yeah, we're talking about the priority for disenrollment if we run out of funds.
So are
Or if
you
the state
making
comes
us, do you have a question of clarification on the AR with regard to the criteria for disenrollment, or?
I'll repeat my question.
I think I understand.
Do we have a serious problem with the enrollment at the district? I mean, how many kids are being kicked out because they're not disabled and?
We aren't kicking any students out. The changes in both of these ARs are primarily about, in the event that the state cuts back our funding and we have to reduce the program,
Right.
then the state has indicated that there's a priority for which students
Okay.
are disenrolled. We're fortunately not in that position. Actually, the state is
Good.
expanding one of our contracts a little bit.
Okay.
So fortunately, we're not in this position at this time, but they are indicating that we should have a procedure in
Okay.
place in the event that that should occur.
But we don't currently have this situation where
Correct.
looking to be proactive in the case that does occur.
Correct. The state
Thank
has
you.
not cut our contracts at this time.
And so for clarification, we've never had to disenroll
No,
students
not
from
in
all
my,
programs.
Not to my knowledge.
not in 15
But in
years.
a dire situation, we need to have a set of priorities.
Correct.
And that's what this AR sets out.
Yes.
Got it.
I mean, it's a very important topic, it's just not on this one. I mean, I am interested in it too. There has been some current, recent news about an increase in some of the child care funding that I thought was coming from the state. So, I mean, that stuff is interesting, it's just not having to do with this.
Yeah, my question's been answered. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we're done with discussion items, and we're on to review and action. So-
Actually, I have a question on the AR 51483.
Okay,
Do you have a page number?
I'm a little concerned that a child that has already been in the program for a while would be, this is on page 106, I believe. right? Anywhere, somewhere in here, there's,
Yep.
their child's been in the program longer, could be disenrolled by a student who is just coming into the program?
Well, that's what the state is telling us we need to do.
What?
That's mandated by the state. That's not our choice.
I'm just concerned about it.
Okay?
If we can get hold of the state and find out why the heck they're doing that to a kid that's been in the school.
But
It's an
my
interesting
guess would
point.
be that it's to give
Everybody.
everyone a
yeah.
chance.
Okay, fine, thank you.
I noticed the same thing, but that's sort of what I figured. It's okay, you've had your 3 years, now somebody else's turn.
Right.
I'm
Well-
thinking of the kid, yeah.
In this case, the most time that a student would be in preschool would be 2 years,
2
3
years.
years and 4 years. And then they would progress to transitional kindergarten or kindergarten. And so they've prioritized it based on whatever criteria they use to determine that, you know, the higher income families would be disenrolled first, which makes sense.
Mhm.
And then I don't know what prompted them to select the other criteria.
Thank you.
Yes, but educational research was probably not considered.
Gee, you think?
Any case, superintendent's goals.
Yes. So I have incorporated some recommendations from board members. And in Goal 1, we have included, or I've included, a goal that is inclusive of input from community and staff. And the way I will accomplish that goal is through public input through community and site coffees, school coffees, board conversations, and school staff meetings. Goal 2, I've included referring to seismic safety assessment, which would be incorporated into the facilities master plan. It actually always was, but we've specified that now. Goal 4, we've added a goal of broadening educational opportunities. Oh, that shouldn't be and stimulates, well, yeah, and stimulating student interest by offering career pathways, and to explore and develop and finance an additional career pathway based on student interest, career viability, and the ability to financially maintain the program. Another recommendation has been to assess the student mental health services and determine current and future needs.
I had suggested that we add build lead to the Venture Explore, the EdSet and Venture Explorer.
Well, I think you narrowed that to, that's too narrow. We have not yet determined that that is, number one, a viable option that can be sustained financially,
Yeah,
that
we've covered
it
that one.
has student interest. It has been suggested and it's being explored, but I don't want to narrow the focus to a predetermined career pathway if we can't support it and there isn't enough student interest.
Okay, and you explained that with the rest of the sentence, so.
Yes.
No, I understand, thank you.
And then on Goal 5, I have added, with the board recommendation, with consideration. So in other words, as we look at academic achievement and including strands for high-achieving student engagement, which is something that I've been concerned about, that we also want to consider those students who have the ability for high achievement but are underperforming.
So just as a matter of, I thought this was interesting, it was a good suggestion of Alan's, just as a matter of clarification. So are you focusing just on the students who have the ability for high achievement but are underperforming, or are you also focusing on the students who are high achievers?
Both.
Okay.
So the original goal was to recognize that we have high-achieving students, and some high-achieving students, and I'm concerned about their engagement. I mean, in terms of the types of curriculum and classes and instructional strategies. And then it has been recommended by a board member that we also acknowledge that there are highest achieving students that are not performing, that are underperforming.
So you're just trying to
broaden it.
out. Okay.
Okay.
I understand. Thank you.
And then in terms of governance, we've changed the word works to will work, recognizes to will recognize, communicates to will communicate. It was semantics.
Okay, Alan?
So I'm a little confused with the wording on goal 5, paragraph 2. It says, bring the strategic plan recommendation to the board for adoption in June 2013. That date is already passed, and I think we already
You
did
already
that.
did, but remember,
Yeah.
these are 18-month goals.
Oh, okay.
And when I actually wrote them,
Yeah.
originally, we hadn't done that.
Okay,
Because the goals are 2012 to 14.
Right.
That's right.
yeah, so with respect to that, I did note page 2 at the bottom, present results of mathematics performance to the board in August 2013. And I believe you said that Director Parenti is ready to give that
Yes,
report.
in September.
So let's agendize that.
Yes.
That'll be good.
And under fiscal stewardship, we will be looking at ways to reduce that 40% structural deficit.
Yes, well, that was a goal that existed in our former budget, where we were looking at revenue limit, the structural deficit as the budget was presented. That situation actually may change under the new LCFF funding formula, and you'll be able to see that at first interim. We'll address that.
And in our last meeting, I think it was Pat expressed some concerns about the expenditures for CCS, for the core curriculum. And under this fiscal stewardship, would that be included, to be looking at costs and expenditures, the strategic plan, and the career, what we call Common Core state standards?
Right. Well, in the first interim, we look at all of our expenditures, including any expenditures for a strategic plan or Common Core. So you would see that reflected in first interim.
Thank you.
Well, I think this is a very responsive set of goals. I think it's responded to the comments that we've made, and I feel pretty comfortable with it in this current draft, and I'm ready to vote to approve it.
Sound like a motion.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Terrific. I did want to make a comment. This is no reflection on these goals, just that they're just a step. And, there's assessments in here and improvements to instruction and so forth. And it's a direction we need to be continuing in. And so, yes, I see.
Very important.
So I just don't ever want to lose track of that. Once we're traveling down this path, we want to continue on it. Don?
I had a question if this would kind of fit within the goals of kind of broadening, kids who are excelling or not excelling, but.
Could you speak into the microphone?
Sure. I was wondering, my daughter, she's starting at the high school. For her foreign language, however, she's taking Japanese at Tilden. And I don't know if this fits into the broadening thing or not, but when it comes time to send the transcripts, is there a way where it can be included within the Albany transcripts? Like, I guess Berkeley High does this and Oakland. But when you're talking about like broadening, I don't know if this is quite on
No,
target
it is.
or
It is.
not.
Actually, the new Flex program that is being developed and currently implemented at Albany High School could indeed incorporate ideas such as foreign language being taken outside of our high school classes and being accepted for credit and/or included in transcripts. So that's a great idea, and I'll pass that along to the principal.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Don. Anyone else? I think that brings us to board and superintendent comments.
Thank you so much for helping at the barbecue, Ron and Alan, Pat, and Paul. And I know you were otherwise,
there in
you were
spirit.
earning a living.
I was there in spirit, that's
You were,
right.
yes. It was very well attended. I thought that our staff development was well received. School started very smoothly
Good.
this year at all the sites. There is always the anxiety of thinking that you're over-enrolled, and in some classes, we do have some adjusting still to make, but we are now in the process of the next 5 days looking at those children that have not shown up to school and whether they are on vacation or there'll be drops. So I'm reluctant to give you an enrollment right now, but suffice to say that Marcia did an excellent job balancing, parent requests and the needs of the district. But by and large, I would say that it was a very smooth start to the school year.
May I say that there was great joy in our household when we remembered that we could sleep 20 minutes later and start school at 8 o'clock.
So did your son get the classes he wanted?
More classes than I would have liked. Plenty of classes.
Plenty of classes.
Yes, thank you.
Lauren, what did you think of the first day of school? Did it go smoothly?
I thought it was pretty cool seeing my friends again at least, but some of the schedules still need to be fixed. A lot of people didn't get the classes they wanted or were put into the wrong ones, but overall it's nice being back in school again.
Okay, and the process for getting that done, you think is robust? Is it going to work?
Usually it works. Tomorrow, Wednesday after school, we can get petitions and get our parents to sign them, see which classes we want instead. It works pretty well.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and I saw it in the bulletin that, the procedure is to do that.
Yeah.
Great. Anyone else? Comments? Alan?
I was just wondering whose turn it is to write meeting highlights. I think we missed the last one.
I was supposed to write the last one and I missed it.
So I'm willing
guilty.
to do it, but I don't want to take somebody else's turn.
Well, you can do tonight's.
Yeah.
That's great, and I will.
I have
I'm
not
still-
done one yet.
right.
I'm not.
I did one in May, and then
Yeah.
I guess somebody else did another one.
We need to
Yeah.
be sure we get back to that. Thanks for bringing that up, and I will try to
Maybe we could write it up. so
write the ones from
we
the last
remember
one. And pre-meeting, announcements, certainly for the next meeting, the unaudited actuals, we want to be sure people know those are coming and, whatever else is on the
To have the
agenda.
highlights for the unaudited actuals and,
Right.
up there.
Well-
I wouldn't worry too much about not having summarized. You can have your two together because, it was the summer and then
Mm-hmm.
people are just starting to focus back on it. So it'll be nice to have just brief summaries of it and for people to get into the
Could
swing.
even combine it into one transmission.
Yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
good idea too.
Oh, okay. Ron?
So I'm looking at the future agenda items, and just one question I have. It looks like we scheduled the flex program in McGregor for the end of September, and I think that we had decided that we wanted to give that some time to see how it's going, and decided to look at it mid-year,
Okay.
not right away.
Okay. We can
And
move
that's
that
my
back.
memory correct?
Yeah, I think that's what we said.
Because I'd really like to have some hard data, how's this going, what's working, what's not.
I think, and maybe what the superintendent was thinking of is it ties into the facilities plan, and we
Yeah,
might
that
want
too.
to have an earlier
Yes.
discussion of it just with respect to facilities.
So there are
Maybe we'll-
two, we have to balance two
But
things.
actually
One,
talking about the actual programs.
right.
I think we
We'll
should
do
do
that
mid-year.
mid-year.
Yeah, okay.
And then, but I do think we need to talk about the facility itself
Yeah, I did too. That was
Okay.
my
That's good.
concern. And the staffing as well, that could go in under the facilities. So we
Okay.
really feel we've got a McGregor program that will work while we're waiting to do the flexing. Or while we're adjusting to
Okay,
the
well, I
flexing.
think basically, the Flex program and McGregor High School that is listed for September the 24th, we will defer to mid-fall. The
Oh, okay.
Facilities,
I think we should defer towards the end of the semester, actually.
okay, so I was thinking November?
November.
Would that be
November,
good?
December, something.
Yeah.
So I prefer what you said before.
Now, no.
Mid-fall.
Then what we're going to do is on the 24th,
Yeah.
we need to talk about the facility itself,
So we
Okay.
could list it as.
separate from
As
That should give
program.
us
Facilities
room
report.
to
Okay.
get some information, sure.
Great, thank you.
Alan?
The subject of the 2x2x2 came up during our discussions of the
Yes.
agenda. I'd just like to reinforce that we do something about that. I mean,
Well,
we
yes.
haven't done it for a long time.
We
and
have,
We have
and-
an issue which has come up, and
The former city manager and I had worked out a plan that was going to have a biannual meeting. We don't currently have, well, we have a interim city manager.
Oh, that's right.
A little problematic right now, but I'll get on it,
yeah,
and
the
we'll see
issues
what
are
we can
still
do.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And last May, I think, we were told that we could expect a pool financial status, budget statement of some sort, so I understand we're doing fairly well. I just like
Yeah.
to know how well.
That will be included in the unaudited actuals.
Oh, okay. So that's next time?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? I think meeting is closed.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Paul.